I do apologise for that. My internet went down. I don't know how much you missed. I'll endeavour to keep going. Okay, are you back with me? Oh, the wonders of modern technology. Well, I'm back with you now, and again, I think this just illustrates that we cannot predict or control anything. I've done what I could to ensure I had a good connection, and it just went. Life is uncertain, isn't it? And that's about the only thing we can be sure of. And that cues another song. This is from the great Bob Dylan. How many roads must a man walk down before you can call him a man? Yes, and how many seas must a white dove sail before she sleeps in the sand? Yes, and how many times must the cannonballs fly before they're forever banned? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many times must a man look up before he can see the sky? Yes, and how many years must one man have before he can hear people cry? Yes, and how many deaths will it take till he knows that too many people have died? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. How many years can a mountain exist before it's washed to the sea? Yes, and how many years some people exist before they're allowed to be free? Yes, and how many times can a man turn his head, pretending he just doesn't see? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. The answer is blowing in the wind. Why do we insist on answers to all our questions? I think it's just a rational mind gone to extremes, isn't it? And that's certainly the perspective of the people I was researching in my PhD. That all this head stuff, all this intellectual emphasis, all this rational thought, it's just been a phase we've been going through. And now those of us, such as those listening today, and those of us in the many organisations of which I'm part or know of, the Transcendence Movement I call them, we know that real knowing, real truth, is about being present, and it's what we can feel within us. But the rational mind can never really know everything, can it? The answer is blowing in the wind, and we can't pin the wind down. Can't pin down vague ideas such as truth or the future. They will take their time and happen as and when they need to. Okay, let's have another few minutes silent reflection, and if any of you have any questions, comments on the theme of predictions for future, omens, that sort of topic, then please put them into the chat window and I'll do what I can to respond. But let us just reflect on this idea of the answer is blowing in the wind, that beliefs, predictions, ideas of the future are just human concepts. They're not reality. Reality is the feeling that we have when we feel connected to each other, to our true essence, to God, to the oneness of life, the Tao, whatever you want to call it. Thank you, Sean. That's an interesting question. So Sean asks, what are my thoughts on the significance of the number 8 for 2015? That's certainly numerology, yeah. I hadn't thought of it, to be honest. I hadn't associated 8 with it, but you're right. I had to smile when I first saw your question, because number 8 is particularly relevant to a book I'm reading at the moment. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with the Terry Pratchett Discworld series. Well, one of these Terry Pratchett books, called Masquerade, is about, well, opera. And it's sort of Terry Pratchett's version of Phantom of the Opera. And in this book, there is a ghost in the theatre. And the ghost occupies, guess what, box number 8. And nobody else is allowed to go anywhere near it. That doesn't really answer the question, but number 8 for 2015. I don't know is the answer, Sean. I'll have to reflect on that one. And if I come up with anything, or anything occurs to me, I will certainly share that next time. Right, okay. So yes, as you say, 2015, 2 plus 1 plus 5 is 8. And that is a significant number. And Sean is suggesting that it reflects a major shift. Absolutely. Certainly from the work I did in my thesis, the transcendence movement, the people that I've worked with and researched, and many others who I've come across in like-minded organisations, online, within the UK and in many forums. Our perspective is certainly that the world is going through a major shift, that we are doing no less than changing how we're thinking. A significant number of people are recognising that the conscious mind has had its day, and that too much emphasis on rational thought is actually at the cause of many, if not all, of the current world's problems. And if 2015 is seen as being significant in this process, then I'm certainly not going to disagree with that. Although, again, I would caution us on being too specific and pinning too much to it. Those of you who can think back a few years, there was all this talk about 2012 and whether that was significant, as in the Mayan prophecies, that would be the end of something significant and the beginning of something else in terms of human evolution and the way we live as human beings. And again, similar comments were made. Is this the year to end all years? So I would say that any significance of 8 to 2015 is probably comparable to the significance that the Mayans and others put on 2012. And I'm also reminded I've been watching a documentary about Bob Dylan, hence Blowing in the Wind. And here's another thing he wrote about, or the title of one of his albums, excuse me while I just look at my notes, is Times They Are A-Changing. So back in 1962-63, Bob Dylan wrote, Times They Are A-Changing. And the 1960s was seen as a time when everything was being turned upside down. So my own perspective is that times human, or the way we as humans relate to the world, how we think, our idea as to what's important about being human, we first started to question that, and our rational emphasis on it, in the 1960s. Hence all the CND, Campaign for Nuclear Disarmament, and all those sorts of things in those days. And what we're seeing now, 2012, 2015, is a continuation of the same process. If you think about it, we're talking about a total change in how we think. A total change in what we mean by knowing, by understanding, by being human. We can't truly expect that to happen in 1 year or even 2 or 3, can we? So I think the shift that we're talking about is going to take quite a few decades and a few generations. And I think if we try to quantify that, we're asking for trouble. It's the same as when I was asked to predict the reliability of electronic equipment. You can come up with some indicators. You can come up with some clues, some factors. And certainly from my research, there are plenty of indicators that more and more of us individual human beings, organisations such as